This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation. Welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. I am joined by my co-host, Adam Murray. Adam, we are going through all of our teams for the NBA regular season 2025-26. As I've been told, is now a highlight sport, not an actual sport where we have to watch all the games. That's good for us because that means we can have our hot takes without watching all the games. But no, we're talking about some interesting teams here in this class for our season preview.
Is your voice already straining? We haven't even started and you're already, hi, everybody.
Nah, it's just just still tad under the weather, but I'll be all right. I'll man through it.
We're just getting started here.
This is I guess this is my flu game. I like how everybody says that's my flu game. It's like you don't even have the fucking flu. You had a sore throat. Everybody calls it the flu game because of Jordan. But how you feel about this one?
This group we are doing this week is I believe I've settled on the stuck in the middle with you group, as there's a lot of movers in here, but these are people who are too good to be bad, too good to be cursed, and too bad to really be good. I mean, but last year we had somebody in this group.
Bad.
Somebody in this group, as in Indiana, made overachieved and went to the finals. So it's not out of the question. We had Miami 3 years ago go to the finals. So people can move from here, but these are just on paper. Early on, you're going to be just above 500, and you're out in the first round.
Yes, but there is the potential that one of these teams, if things break right, can go further because they have enough equipped to make a run if things break their way. We actually have one of the teams that made the NBA Finals in this one as a spoiler.
We have a whole injured.
We have a team that won the NBA championship the year before that. They're in here.
We have the Oshner Health All-Stars in
we
here.
We have potential Hall of Fame players as star players on some of these teams that we talk about. Future Hall of Famers, ? Teams that are just teams that have been in the playoffs year after year. And then some that are right there knocking on the door. So it's more interesting than probably those two tiers below them, where we just don't know how good they can be. I think these teams can be good now if they, every team in the league, if things break wrong, there's that, you can flip that switch and you can just tank the season. But I think every team is capable of that. But these teams, I agree with what you were saying with your verbal puzzlement, that they're too good to be terrible is what I'll say.
They're too good. They're too expensive. They're some of these teams have traded a lot of future picks to be where they are now.
And if you tank, it's so glaringly obvious that the league would probably have to crack down on it.
This is just sort of the meat of the league.
Mm-hmm.
Not the elites, not the garbage. In this highlight league, they are just the meat in the middle. Nothing, not fancy steak, just a nice old sandwich.
Salami, just it's the salami on the sandwich, yes. All right, Adam, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. Brought back an entire... Yes.
Can we just skip on? Can we just skip on?
No, we have to talk about them all. They won the NBA championship going away in 2024. They brought the entire roster back. It was one of the only times ever, maybe the Bulls did it in the late 90s, where they just brought literally back every single player they had on the team. They had a great regular season. They shot a ton of threes. They hit a brick wall in the playoffs against the Knicks. And right when they were about to go down 3-1, Jason Tatum tears his Achilles in a terrible, terrible circumstance. They lost in 6 to the Knicks. They knew that they weren't going to have Tatum for the next season, which is the season we're previewing. and they had to do a lot of things in order to have new ownership say, okay, we can't pay too much luxury tax. So they deliberately unloaded a lot of the talent that they had in the previous 2 seasons.
It is quite unfortunate you had this new CBA and this new double tax line. And since the problem is you could trade draft picks 7 years out. But
Hmm.
this new CBA came about in what, 2 years?
Well, not only that, you had your 2 stars wind up signing supermax extensions
But this
that
was
kicked
but
in because of the fact that they made all NBA. Now,
exactly.
I'm not saying they
But
don't deserve the money. They did. Tatum and Brown are superstars, but one is down.
but however, what I'm trying to say is these moves, and do we pay them? Can we max out both of them? This was decided years ago. This was decided probably year 2 and 3 into the rookie contract of should we do this? What's our long term goal? Then all of a
True.
sudden, the long term rug gets pulled out from under them, and then you have to jettison.
Just
Basically,
Porzingis.
your number one player is injured. You have to jettison your fourth, fifth, and seventh best player. So 2 starters and a top bench guy, and they replaced them with Anthony Simons and nothing. So it's really disappointing going from the deepest team in the league to just Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman are your bench now. Uh,
Simons was part of the trade that involved Drew Holiday. When you could go to this Blazer part when we talk about them on our preview, but because we had our qualms about why the Blazers did that deal, but we don't know how good of a fit Simons is. Simons is a very productive player.
Simon is going to be a perfect fit
He
because all
averaged
they're going to
19 points and 5 assists a game. He can shoot threes and he can fit in. Holiday, production wise, in terms of stats, was definitely on the downturn. But Drew Holiday was almost getting this reputation of like playoff Drew Holiday, where when he gets to the playoffs, he takes it up a notch. Well, obviously, now that Holiday's gone, you don't have that. I think missing Porzingis is enormous because he helped unlock the offense.
well, when Porzingis was out with his injuries, you saw how bad the team is, and they replaced him with Nehemias Queta, who was what, the 11th player on the bench. Like he was
Yeah.
just getting
And
DMPs. All of a sudden, he's
they picked up
starting.
Chris Boucher. Yeah.
Sam Hauser is now the starting 4.
Hauser is a fan. He already signed an extension like before the offseason, but he's a very good 3-point shooter. Not
He
much of a
is,
defensive player.
and that the same goes for Simons. Like Simons is always all they're going to do is just shoot three. They're going to be like Indiana, and they're just going to score 140 points, and they don't care what you score.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the crazy part about Boston is that as strapped as they are to get to the second apron by unloading those players, it could have been worse. They actually got the sixth man of the year, Peyton Pritchard, on small money. So it actually could have been worse had they had to
No,
negotiate higher.
the fact they didn't have to give up first round picks to get rid of their team and swapping Porzingis for George Niang, who then they swapped for Chris Boucher, going from I believe Porzingis made 30 million and Boucher is a minimum deal. So going
Mhm.
from 30 to 3, and Simons is a swap, but Simons is expiring. So look for them to dump him at the deadline.
I would fully expect a lot more play from the guys that they've had over the last couple of years in the rotation, but that Joe Mazzulla is familiar with. Baylor Shireman, like you mentioned, Xavier Tillman. Um, I don't know about Luca Garza and Josh Minot. They had basically been toiling on the bench in Minnesota, but I
Yeah,
have to imagine they have plans for them in the rotation.
that's the problem. Is that was your big signings was two end of the bench.
They had no choice. They were on minimum money and they were capped. I mean, they didn't have a choice, you know?
But it's not like they were productive in Minnesota, and it's very hard to get psyched up for really any of this. It's not their fault that
Hmm.
the cap came down and they had to do everything. Like you've seen this with Denver, and then we saw Phoenix who just had to just we're done, and then Milwaukee is we just need to cut Dame. You know, having moving Pritchard into the starting lineup will be interesting because it'll be Pritchard, White, Brown, Hauser, and Caden.
So you don't think you think
I think
Simons will
Simons will
start
be
and they'll
off the
just keep Pritchard
bench.
off the bench?
No, I think Pritchard will start and
Oh,
Simons
I'm
will be
sorry.
the
So
dude
you
off
see
the
it the other
bench.
way. Pritchard will start and then as a point guard type, and Simons will come off the bench. I got a feeling it might be the other way. I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. I think Hauser's going to wind up starting at center, which will be an experiment to say the least.
Then why even bother playing defense if you're going to start him?
Derek White is a fantastic player. He's had a couple good years in a row, but he had a really good year last year. 16 and a half points. I'm pretty sure that's the most points per game he's had in a season in his career. 5 assists, more than a steal, tons of threes, 3.5 a game. He's productive. I know he had signed a pretty meaty extension that ends at 35 mil in 2028, but he is a good player. That was a guy that I really think Brad Stevens, the GM, did not want to give up in all of these moves that they made.
Well, if they did, he would have gotten them a nice haul. Like if they said we're going to tank and we're going to retool, they could have gotten a couple firsts for him
Mhm.
and some players and everything, but just going down and just cutting salary and cutting salary.
This is
I
going to be the toughest challenge. I know that Missoula was in a horrible position when Ime Udoka was fired for, it was a behavior situation where he was fired for a relationship and all this stuff. But this one might be the toughest coaching job he's had in a single season. I wonder if he will double down on the 3-point shooting and they're just going to attempt more to mask the weaknesses on the team.
basically you're correct, as he inherited a championship team, so he didn't have to really do run plays, and it
He got
kind of showed.
exposed by Spoelstra in the playoffs. Everybody knows about that, but they did win the title the next year.
Well, his time management got exposed, and just the lack of running plays after a while. It's just, yeah, you know they're just going to shoot threes, and if they go cold, they have no way to get themselves out of it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to develop something. I'm expecting no. I'm just saying take the over on 3 points made for this team again.
Hmm.
Um,
If I had to guess, their attempt rate was somewhere around the 40s. It's probably going to be higher than
I
that.
believe they set the record last year,
Yeah.
and
I
I
mean, they took so many threes. I mean, that was literally, Adam, like what brought them down against the Knicks. They had 2 games that they lost at home, and the reason why is down the stretch, they kind of got very uncreative on offense and they just chucked way too many threes and they bricked them all. And that's why they lost those games. And that's how they wound up in a 3-1 hole to start with. Had that not happened, Lord knows, maybe they go to the Eastern Conference Finals and beat the Pacers. Like that's all hypotheticals. Where's their over under?
oh, I was just gonna say, they had the second pick in the second round this year, but they got a Godfather offer from Orlando with 4 second-round picks.
Mhm.
So there were players who were falling. It's like they could have gotten somebody to plug in. Nope, they'll pick up more picks. So
Yeah, the only rookie brick coming in is Hugo Gonzalez. We'll see how he is.
who is not ready for anything. So Vegas is very, very down on them. They started off at 44.5 when the books opened. Then everyone said no, and it slid to 43.5, and it slid again to 42.5. So
Mm.
it's basically,
This
are
was
they
a
going to be over?
61 win team last year.
Are they going to
61.
be over 500?
Um, I would say that it's a very good number. I would say low under it, but not confidently. I can definitely see him scratching out a 41-41 record, a 40-42 record, and fighting in the play-in. Jaylen Brown, if you're a DFS person, Jaylen Brown's going to get a lot of touches. Now, is it going to expose his efficiency? I don't know. There have been games where Brown doesn't always get the most touches, and he plays really well and shoots a high percentage. So
Well, he's being paid to be number one guy, and this is his chance to
that's
show
true.
he can
Yeah.
take a team. Everybody's down on him because he's a number two guy.
I would wait. I would wait a month or 2 to see how he plays with more than 20 shots a game. Because that's been a criticism of Brown in Boston in the last couple of years. He doesn't take enough shots, you
Well, because
know?
he has to defer to Tatum,
Correct.
and
Well, now that
then
Tatum's out, and let
yeah.
me ask you
So
this. I know this might be a silly question, but I just want to throw it out there. Do you think there's a possibility Tatum comes back late in the year?
I don't think they'll rush him back.
Like now they can do the TPE. That's called a disabled player exception. But that means that you're ruling out that Tatum's going to play at all. I think actually the Pacers have already anticipated that with Halliburton, but
Well, yeah, because he
Tatum's
was
injury
literally
was
the end.
well, that was a month later, right?
Yeah.
Than Tatum. So does Tatum come back and they try to push for it? Like that happened. I remember one time with Paul George when he broke his leg in August and for the Pacers, and he came back very late, and he kind of had an injury
Yeah, but
scare.
if they get the exemption, all that new money goes on the cap too. It's not like it's a free contract,
That's
so
correct. It's not an exception against your cap. You
they
have
will
to
be
spend it
put back
against
in
the
the if
cap.
they use it, they're going to be close to the second line again, and they're trying, I believe, they're slightly over the first line. Like they could get under it completely, and if they
Yeah.
start losing or if Brown gets injured, yeah, they're just going to sell the part.
But
Be like,
that speculation I brought about Tatum maybe come back, that doesn't affect what you think about the over under.
oh, I'm still taking the under.
You're taking the under. You see, I think that's a good number at 42.5. I can see him ending it right at 41 and 41. Like that's where the Miami Heat always are, and that's
I
how I
see
see it.
40, 41 ish. I just can't see
Their fourth quarter blues are going to be bad because their bench is going to be exhausted.
the
You know,
team has no bench, and I can't see all the starters playing 75 games each.
hmm
There's gonna be an injury. There's
they'll have
gonna
winning
be
records in months. Now they won't go 14 and 1 and 12 and 2 like they did at
oh,
some
but
points.
they're in the East, so they're gonna easily they should I should say
Great
easily
home crowd
pound
too.
on the Washingtons and the Charlottes and the Torontos. They should easily be better than these bad teams, and there's a lot of them in the East. However, I'm still taking the under.
I do think they have defensive potential with White and
They
Brown
don't
playing a
have
lot of
defensive
minutes.
potential.
With White and Brown playing heavy minutes, I think they can shut some people down, get a lot of steals. That's what I mean by
But
that.
how? If they got defensive with White and Brown and Pritchard, yeah, you just said they're going to start Hauser at center.
Yeah. Well, Boucher's a good shot blocker. I mean, there is a possibility that, Missoula plays with that.
Yeah, he plays with Boucher and
This
Quiketa
is a
as
man
a
who started
dual
Luke
big.
Cornett when everything was going to hell in the playoffs and he got 5 blocks in a game. Cornett's gone. So that's you gotta really dig into
You
the
lose, yeah, you
garbage
lose
heap.
Cornet, you lose Hortford, and you lose Porzingis,
Mhm.
and you replace him with Luca Garza, your um, favorite of the show, Luca Garza and Chris Boucher, and the two-way player from Kentucky.
Yeah. But
But
that is true. If there's foul trouble in these games, the Celtics are in deep, deep trouble. All right, Adam, the Detroit Pistons, just the absolute depths of despair, despite having Cade Cunningham coming along after he was picked overall #1 in 2021. They get rid of Bonnie Williams. They bring in JB Bickerstaff, and they had a turnaround and wound up in the first round of the playoffs and had a spirited series against the Knicks.
the playoff series was more competitive than I thought it was. I thought it was going to
I
be
agree. I thought the Knicks were going to sweep them, and I
like
was
it
wrong.
was when Oklahoma City made it a few years ago. It's like, okay, they made it. You know they're going to get swept out of it, but good for them for making it. They're not ready. The same thing with Detroit was, oh, these guys aren't ready. And there was a few ref calls that were very pro New York, and there was
Mhm.
a little.
The Pistons, if people don't remember, they lost all the home games in the playoff series, but they won 2 in the Garden. That's what made it such a odd series. But Cunningham looked fantastic. Tobias Harris had some good moments. Malik Beasley, who was one of the best 3-point shooters in the league that year, and he was a sixth man of the year candidate. He had some nice moments as well. But we can speculate about Beasley in a sec. Cunningham, I would probably have no problem labeling him in today's age as a superstar.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Beasley left Milwaukee, took a 1 year deal with Detroit, and he bet on himself to get a better deal later.
Well, he did,
Too
but
soon.
yeah,
Too
he did.
soon.
Here's the problem, we things might change over time, in terms of where his destination is, but no one knows if he's actually cleared of wrongdoing. The league, like the feds cleared him, but now the league wants to look into it. So I got a feeling the league wants to drag their feet on it and make sure everything is straight. If they wound up getting him back on smaller money just for 1 year, because they made additions. They added Duncan Robinson, they added Karis LeVert, they bring back Paul Reed as a backup center for Jalen Duren, who had good moments. That is a team that has potential if you add Beasley again to the mix.
And you forgot they lost Tim Hardaway Jr., who was very productive for them as
He
well.
was. He was. Tim Hardaway, I don't want to bury him. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. did well for them. He was a good three-point shooter.
And
But Robinson and LeVert are excellent three-point shooters. So
yeah,
that
but
was why they
swapping
signed them.
out Beasley and Hardaway for Robinson and LeVert, I think is a little bit of a lateral downgrade.
I would say neutral. I wouldn't say downgrade because
I
I
said
think Robinson.
laterally. It's not, but it's not an
You said
improvement.
lateral downgrade. That's down. Downgrade is down.
I
You know.
think Beasley and Tim Hardaway is just underrated. He got a bad rap because he was the odd man out in
Defensively, he's
Dallas,
bad.
and
But defensively, he's bad. That's been his biggest problem. And defensively, the Pistons this year were definitely good, and that's been their problem under like not just Monty. It was before that. It was another coach. They have just been so bad defensively. They just had no fight down the stretch, because they couldn't stop people. They actually were able to win games because they were able to stop people. And this is with Jaden Ivey being hurt for most of the year because he basically had a broken ankle.
yeah, Detroit is very interesting. They seem to be at a very crucial crossroads right now because
They have the cap room. That's the thing.
technically, but extensions are coming for Ivy
And Duren.
and Duren.
I
Are either
wonder.
of them
Oh yeah, you go ahead and ask me the question.
are either of them centerpieces where you have to give them the money?
Duren, yes. Ivy, I'm not sure.
That's the problem. Is when Ivy got injured early, he was promising, but I don't know.
Ivy had a lot of clashes with Monty, and I think Bickerstaff was a bigger fan of him, and he played him a lot more. And he started, like you said, he started coming around right when the injury happened.
But with
Duren
Monty,
is a staple at the center spot. He's not perfect. He can't make a jump shot to save his life, but defensively, he's good. He gets to the free throw line because he attacks the rim and he can rebound. So I think Duren is the one is a higher priority on the extension list than Ivy is.
that's why it's just very like, well, what do you do with Ivy? Is he good but not
Is
good?
he a
Like,
sixth man? That's the other problem.
is
Levert's
he a
been a
Malik
sixth
Monk
man.
or
Yeah.
is he a De'Aaron Fox? Like, where does he fit? But everything for me on this team focuses around Asor Thompson.
Man,
He
the
seems
Thompson twins are fantastic. The other one's in Houston, but Osar in the playoffs had some moments where I'm like, wow, this guy is not too
because he was
bad.
out with the blood clots last year, at the end of
Mhm.
last year, early this year. As we've seen, when it takes you out, it's just like, oh, you need to go extra slow. But when moving Hardaway and Beasley now, Levert and Duncan Robinson aren't really the threes, and you have these two not undersized, but two similar size guards in Ivy and Cunningham. You need Thompson there at the three to be that defender
Yeah,
slasher,
you need the length. And yes,
and he
Cade
can't
isn't
shoot
good.
for anything.
Not yet. Not yet.
So
He's a
he
pusher.
needs to, if he falls in his development, I could see the team taking a step back. But if he continues, like you said, those flashes, you're like, if he could put that together, I think we have something on our hands here.
Yeah, for an NBA at an NBA level, 1.7 steals a game for a second year player is excellent. They're like, this guy's a good defensive, but I think you have a point about the shooting. I know that it looks like it says 53%. Well, he dunked things and he laid stuff up and he got putbacks. 22% from three is bad. That means he's not a good long range shooter. Ron Holland the second, I think, will come along. I think JB Bickerstaff liked him. He put him in playoff lineups because he could spark up the offense sometimes. The one I wonder if they're going to move him, because I think Paul Reed being re-signed was a sign of it, is Isaiah Stewart, Beef Stew. I know that he's been there for a while. He's a kind of a goon, an enforcer who gets rebounds, but I don't know if they're going to want to keep his contract around, which
I
is
knew you were going to say that. His contract's not bad. He only makes 15 million a year.
it's not a lot,
You
but
have
I wonder if
Tobias,
they
who's
just want to give
expiring.
themselves wiggle room in case they make a deadline deal, and Stu would be the one that gets put in it.
He was the one, they could get something for him. It's just, however, his temper gets in his way still, and He's a
Now, some
nice.
people see that as an advantage. Like, we got a Bill Laimbeer type that will pick on people, or if someone tries to get a dirty play on Cade or Levert or Duran, here comes Isaiah Stewart getting ready to punch people. Now, this is a guy who I think they were in Phoenix, and I can't remember who it was. It was a Phoenix center, and I don't remember who it was. It may have been Drew Eubanks, but he straight up punched him and got arrested.
Wasn't it in the parking lot or in the
Yeah, it
entranceway?
wasn't in the
It
arena.
wasn't even
That's
in the
the
arena. Yeah, it's just
and he
like
got arrested.
stuff like that is like you okay, we get it. You can't turn it off when you need to. But yeah, Robinson will give you backup threes. His contract isn't bad. They paid him a lot this year, but that's just for I believe salary matching purposes, which you kind of have to overpay everybody these days.
Mhm.
And then like only I believe 2 or 3 million is guaranteed for next year. So it's a very low risk signing. Levert is over 30, so he's and has a history of injuries. So
Yeah.
I'm not expecting a ton from. I just again, if a Sword Thompson could come in and he could give you 30 minutes and he's that, all we're talking all, defense improvement for him.
Yeah.
I have, but like it's just well, Cade will be Cade. He's going to score his points.
That's what I was gonna say. How do you feel about Kate? Like, what can he improve on?
I don't think he can improve anything.
I think I think he can be a little bit better at attacking the rim. Like, I think he's a guy who can get. He averaged 4.5 made free throws a game. That's excellent. But I can see him going into like the Shea Gilgis Alexander territory where he just lives at the line, you know. But he had an excellent year. Tobias Harris is near the end of that 2-year deal. That he signed that deal with Detroit because Detroit was terrible and they just offered the most money at the time because they had the most cap space. But Tobias fit well there. We'll see how he feels as he goes into the last year of that contract. And even though I like their sixth, seventh, and eighth guys, I guess you could say between Stewart and Levert and Robinson, once you get past that, Adam, it's tough because Marcus Sasser hasn't developed. Bobby Clinton has not gotten enough time. Denise Jenkins is a two-way player. Like once you get past the seventh man, they don't really have any depth at all.
But they have enough depth to be. There's no development. The developmental is too, like you said, Bobby
I think the
Clinton.
focus on Holland and Asor and getting them acclimated to being a starter level players. They had 44 wins last year. That's where the over under's at.
That's the problem. Is it started at 44 and a half. It went up to 45, and then right back down to 44.
Mhm.
So I, which is where I was like, oh, they'll be at 45 and
Yeah,
44, 45. That's right where they seem to be slotted. And
I would go higher than that because the East. I think there's places where you can get easy wins. I could see them being around a 48 win team.
but I could also see them
50, I don't
falling
see it.
apart. I could see them just regressing and
Well, Cade Cunningham has missed just about 2 full seasons, maybe a full season if you combine them both in his career. So he has had injuries in his past.
I am
Um,
gonna pencil in with the lightest shade of pencil as an over, but I am very not committed to it because I
okay.
think this was one of the two I had. I believe there were two where I was like, I I think that's a perfect line. I don't know which way it would fall.
I mean, that's what Vegas is for. Like it's a really good long future for them. It really comes down for me to their shooting and if they can't retain Beasley, which I think is the likelihood, will they be able to replace it with Levert, Robinson, maybe Ivy if he
And
can do.
that's sort of a problem of itself. If Beasley does come back, which of course we don't know because I don't even know when this is going to be
I don't
released,
think
and
Beasley knows where he's going yet. Yeah.
if it most likely well because Detroit's the only team that has money left that is good, so he can take a minimum deal to go somewhere, or he could get probably 6 million from Detroit again. But if he comes back, what does that mean for Levert and Robinson? There goes all their minutes because now
Hmm.
you have a logjam, which you know they'll figure out. But I think they pivoted okay with this last minute. audible they
Al-
had to make.
Also, they got a I wouldn't say a tag or a stigma, but they got a reputation of being physical. Sort of a shout out to like their because they were the bad boys of the 80s and all that stuff. But they did have this kind of like physical attitude of like, you're not gonna we were the doormat of the NBA, but you're not gonna push us around anymore. Aggressiveness last year, but it got them in a lot of foul trouble. The referees started calling a lot of fouls on them, and they would get really frustrated and emotional down the stretch of games. Let's see if they can keep the emotion in check. All right, Adam, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers. Whoo, roller coaster ride. So they had a very solid, just kind of going through the motions regular season where they were a winning team. They had a 4 seed. They beat the Bucks. Then they blitzed the Cavaliers, who had the best record in the regular season. They beat the Knicks. Tyrese Halliburton has 3 different game winners. They go to the finals. Their offense is cooking. They go all the way to the 7th game of the NBA Finals, a win away from the NBA championship. And 10 minutes into the game, Tyrese Halliburton tears his Achilles and they lose.
And then just heartbreak after heartbreak after
That is,
heartbreak.
dude, I am not a fan I am a Pelicans fan. I'm not a particular fan of any franchise, but my heart went out to the Pacers. That was a gut punch watching Tyrese Halliburton go down.
It was, and then you get to the off season knowing you don't have him, and then they try to play
Yeah,
hardball
I
with
don't know if the Pacers have said it. I want to say yes in different interviews, maybe Herb Simon and Rick Carlisle, but Tyrese Halliburton has said in interviews, I'm not playing next year. There's no way. I can't be ready next year.
Yeah, they basically wrote him off.
Yeah, unfortunate.
And then, like I said, Simon wanted to play hardball with Turner and
Miles Turner.
lowballed him. And then
hmm
who knew the rival would be crazy enough
Do you
to.
think they could have walked any of that back in terms of I mean, I don't want to say making promises to Turner or being willing to go over the tax to do so, but is there anything they could have done so that they weren't undercut like that by the Bucks?
Yes, the excuse of I'm cheap, I don't pay the tax.
Yeah, but remember, the report got leaked out to Shams, and that was done purposefully. Of we're willing to pay tax, and that was basically the Pacers telling Miles Turner's agent, "Hey, we'll pay extra to keep you guys."
There was, but then you don't start negotiations going. If he's looking for 30, you don't start saying, "Well, take a pay cut from your 25 you were getting. We're going to give you 20 to 22."
Yeah, what happened is the Bucks. I think what happened is the Pacers didn't anticipate the Bucks being a suitor because of the Lillard thing, but once the stretch happened and they realized it was too late, and Turner had already agreed to the
It
deal.
was too late, and they gave him that 4th year. Like, we're going to only offer you 3 for 66, and if it has nothing to do with where we don't want to pay the tax or we're
Mhm.
willing to pay. Well, it's probably we're going to pay the tax, but once Halliburton's out for the full year, well, what's the point of paying the tax for essentially a lost season?
Yeah, I'm fearful for Turner in Milwaukee. Well, you can listen to what we talk about there, but for Turner, he had those. He fit really well within the Indiana offense and defense, where he could get the blocks. He's been a good shot blocker since he entered the league in 2016 or 15, and but he does have those games where he can get the big rebounds, he can hit threes, he rolls to the basket really well, he sets good screens. He just meshed really well offensively with the likes of Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nemhard, even Obi Toppin, a power forward, was able to kind
That's
of
who I
find
was going
second
to
life.
say.
Yeah.
You have him who's a seventh man making 15 million a year. They could have gotten rid of his money, and
Yeah.
they could have moved him.
Also a good 3-point shooter, Obi Toppin is.
Yeah, they could have moved him if they were looking to save money. So it was just sort of a big fumble on their part, and then they try to save face by trading for Jay Huff and Memphis.
They brought back James Wiseman. James Wiseman was actually signed the year before. What happened is in the very first game of the season, he tore his Achilles tendon, but they signed him again. They brought him back.
Yeah, it's a low risk. If he could stay healthy, he'll provide something.
Bringing back Tony Bradley, I believe. It's a complicated situation because he has a very late team option, but I would anticipate, given that he was in the playoff rotation with Carlisle, that Bradley will be back.
They'll be fine at guard.
And then
Losing
Isaiah
Halliburton.
Jackson and Jeracy Walker.
Yeah, Jackson got injured in the fifth game, I
hmm
believe.
Torn Achilles. Yep.
But like I said, you lose Halliburton, that's a big deal. But you have Nemhard. You gave him that deal. He really overachieved. He was one of the big overachievers this past year.
He was maybe the best pull up 3-point shooter, like semi transition player in the league. Like if that was one of the things that people didn't expect in the playoffs. Like if you were doing like a secondary break and he pulled up, it was automatic. He was making a shot. And that was one of the things that made the Pacers so dangerous is that their outside shooting was just it wasn't amazing every game, but they just found a way late in games to close out. And that was their criticism the year before when they lost to Boston in a sweep is that at the end of every game, they just fell apart. And they solved that. And it's unfortunate, but this is what happens, Adam, when teams go far and they go to the finals and they win a championship. They get picked apart in free agency. Teams want some of that winning attitude, and you can't afford to keep them all. Unfortunately for the Pacers, not having Halliburton, your top assist guy, not always your top scorer. I would say Siakam was their top scorer, I believe. Yeah, 20 points a game versus 18. But Halliburton was the engine of the offense in terms of getting the assists and getting the offense going. Now you kind of have to pivot to Siakam and Nemhard, and
That's the problem is everything's going to rely on Siakam. And if he goes out for an extended period of time at all due to
it's going to be
injuries,
tough. Yes.
yeah, you have Obi Toppin and Jerace Walker having to fill that spot. And like you mentioned, they plan on just doing this plateaued center thing. And it's just that which never works.
Well, it
I
can't work, but I don't know if they were hard capped anyways, but once they lost Turner, they I guess Herb Simon just decided, okay, we're not going to pass the tax because without Halliburton, we know we're not going to be that good. So we're not going to try to push it too hard.
and
So it's
that's the
almost like they're
problem.
taking a flyer.
That's the problem is they're not going to be terrible. They're just going to be back in
Oh,
their
I agree.
usual
They are not
6
going to
to
be a
10
bad team at all.
range.
They are not going to be a bad team at all. Ben Matherin is going to be really motivated to prove he's worth an extension. We'll see if he can get that negotiated in the next couple of months. But Matherin he hunts for free throws. He's athletic. He defensively, he's not terrible. So I can see him getting a lot more minutes. Aaron Neesmith had some very nice moments, especially in the playoffs. And then you have the perfect backup point guard in TJ McConnell.
Yep.
So
Vegas has brought them back down to reality. They started at 37 and a half, but moved up to 38 and a half.
was a 50-win team last year, and then they overachieved past that in the playoffs. I would go over. I think they're going to be probably a 40 to 42 win team, to be honest, even without Halliburton for the entire season. No discussion there. And not having Turner anymore and kind of having to put a band-aid on the center spot. If Jackson is like the shot blocker that he showed at times, I don't think he can replace Turner. Not a chance. But I think he can do things that Turner was able to do.
I have them also lightly penciled in as an under, but I'm going to wait to see sort of
Oh, I
how.
have him over that. I have him over that.
I know you have a hard over. I have them because everybody can't be over. And
hmm
I think it's going to take a while for them to find their new mix without Turner, since Turner was such an integral part in that offense, like you said. And just having these randos in there, I don't think is an easy 1-for-1 swap.
Yeah. And Carlisle's a great coach. He's proven it now.
And
Like,
that's what I also wrote. I picked the under, but I fully expect them to continue their overachieving. That just bites everybody.
hmm they had their better months after the new year. They actually had losing records in October, November, December. So clearly this was a team that blossomed late. Let's see if this combination without Halliburton can do it. If you're a DFS guy, Nemhard's going to get a lot of touches. Neesmith's going to get a lot more touches. I know that. I know those. I know you follow the Celtics. The Celtics have sort of a hate relationship now with Neesmith, but that is a guy that can really be an X factor sometimes.
It wasn't a hate relationship. It was they drafted him probably because he was the highest on their board and they didn't draft for need. But when you're drafted behind Brown and Tatum, where are you going to get minutes? And there just wasn't minutes for him,
Yeah, and some
unfortunately.
interesting guards that they have at the bench. Very young players though that they might be able to sprinkle in. Ben Shepherd, who played more minutes than people think. Johnny Furphy, good athlete. Cam Jones, who came from Marquette. Let's see if they can get some playing time. The one I'm watching is Jeracy Walker. Can Walker? He was a very high pick out of Houston. Can he show some spark and be able to keep his defensive assignments and not get sent back exiled to the bench for not doing the right defensive assignments, which is I think the biggest problem he had.
However, if you are, and I know you are, a person who looks at the yearly awards, I imagine there has to be somebody from this team you like for MIP, whether it be Nemhard or, like you said, Isaiah Jackson or Jay Huff, because
Yeah.
you lose two of your three best players, arguably, and you need to fill those minutes somehow. So there's opportunities
I think
abound for this
Nemhard
team.
will get a ton of minutes, but I'll say this. I think they're gonna keep Matherin at the 6-man position, and I think he's always up for it if he's not injured. This is a guy that averages routinely 16 to 15 points a game. He's probably gonna do it again.
And that's like I mentioned earlier in the intro. They're too good to be bad. It's just they had a unfortunate luck and unfortunate misfortunes where they're
Mhm.
put in this group. And yeah, we know they're not going to be able to compete realistically on paper with
Yeah.
Cleveland.
And
And
one of the advantages, I don't think Halliburton's a bad defender at all. I actually think he's a good defender when they were getting into crunch time to get steals and stuff. But not having Halliburton does not terribly affect the defense, which was middle of the pack, but not terrible. So I wonder if their defense, even without Halliburton for the year, is going to be good enough to get stops and stay in games.
either way, they'll be at least they're a fun team to watch,
Agreed.
with the exception of their gray court and neon yellow Comic Sans
hmm
tournament outfits.
Their offense has been top 10 for the last 3 years. Even without Halliburton, I still think they're going to be solid. Adam, let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. This is one that really broke bad very quickly in the regular season. Joel Embiid's knee, the continuing storyline of Joel Embiid's health. He wasn't ready to go. Paul George just didn't seem to be dialed in. They had a 3-11 record in November. They had moments where with Jared McCain as a rookie, he showed some promise until he got hurt. Then they just absolutely tanked it down the stretch and they were a mash unit. I don't even think Tyrese Maxey played
Con-
more than 50 games.
Congratulations for winning the off-season award last year. It got you far. Yeah, like you said, within the first 2 weeks of the season, you knew they were doomed.
Yes.
And Embiid just even like just looking forward when you saw this happen, you're like, his contract is now crippled this franchise. He has
Just to
gone.
just to give perspective, he had a new Supermax deal already extended that starts in 2026-27. So that he is not an unrestricted free agent until 2029 when he's 35. And there is speculation he might not even be ready to start this season.
He might not be ready to start this season. He
Ugh.
can't do back to backs. He's already been written off for back to backs, which I believe is 18 games or 15 or
And let me
18
be
games.
clear,
So
this is a guy that just to show how good he is, in that short season he averaged 24 points and 8 rebounds and 8 free throws a game. And that was well below the year before. So this is a guy who, when he's in MVP mode, he's phenomenal. but he can't stay healthy.
But he's declining, and then there's injuries, and then his
Hmm.
size of his body, it's just not going well. And Paul George injured.
Might be the worst year he's had since probably maybe his rookie year or second year in the league, where he was kind of burgeoning. And 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. That's good for anybody, but for Paul George, that's low.
But
That
it's
was a
okay. It's the highlight league, and it's rigged, so they get the third pick and somehow get VJ Edgecombe
from Baylor. Yeah.
to slide in, and it's just like, so you're getting a team that has no money and will not have money. You're giving them a
They are
cheap
hard
rookie
capped.
deal.
Yes.
Like, that's sort of not fair. Also, just from their off-season moves that are very curious, which I don't understand. What was the point of keeping Yabusele past the deadline if you weren't going to re-sign him? You
I
let him.
don't. And they played Gershon Yabusele a lot during the tank months. So you kind of wonder, like, why are they dangling him out there? Then they re-signed Kyle Lowry, who is right at the end of his rope. Like,
But he's a veteran minimum. Those are just, it doesn't matter who you pick at that.
Mhm. The
The,
only outside signing they really made, other than drafting Edgecombe, was Trendon Watford, who I would anticipate will get some playing time.
it's just a big shrug because you had an extremely top-heavy team and they're injured. We saw this with Phoenix. We saw this with the Clippers and Brooklyn.
If
Like,
your
this is
top
what
guys are hurt or they don't mesh well, it just absolutely goes to shit fast. Yeah.
pretty like you and we don't even know like what they're even, because you have your starting lineup's not going to be the same every day because Embiid's going to be out, so you have to move Drummond in, and you got
Yeah.
Edgecombe, and then that and Grimes, who they're going to re-sign
I
eventually.
don't even know. We don't even know about Drummond in the lineup with Nick Nurse. He plays him a lot because he's a great rebounder. He still averaged 8 rebounds a game at his advanced age. But they do have a Dembona who they had drafted. They kept Justin Edwards around, who had been playing a lot of like that at the end of the year. So we'll see. Jared McCain, I liked him because he's a good 3-point shooter and he values his shots. I actually really enjoy watching Tyrese Maxey. I like the speed at which he plays. I like how quickly he can just completely overtake his guy. And he averaged the most minutes per game when he played 38 minutes. So this is a guy who doesn't slow down.
No, and that's what you need with the rest of the with the entire front court being slowed down.
Hmm.
It's front court depth is a very big concern, especially when you have people knowingly who are going to be off
Hmm.
large chunks of time
They're so desperate, they might have to play the second round pick they picked up, Johnny Broom. You
from
know, it,
Auburn.
they had to pick up Jabari Walker from Portland as a two-way just so that they could have more big guys. Yeah.
That's again why you letting Yabusele go, and then uh, weird, weird things. But this is why those who win the awards in the preseason
Hmm.
and the paper champions just mean absolutely nothing. So a very curious case about them was they were actually off book on day one. On
Yes.
day one, when when everything opened, when I found it, they were not on it. So I'm
I think
like,
they weren't sure about Embiid's health at the time.
and then they opened up, and you could really put them anywhere. You could be like, if they're healthy, I could see 50 wins easily, or you could be like, I could see 30 again.
Mm.
You could say anything and sort of be like, yeah.
They won 24 games last year. This team absolutely bottomed out.
I mean, there was nobody left at the end. Or by the
Except
end, I
for
mean,
Quentin Grimes, who, as we're talking, is still a restricted free agent. We'll see what happens there. But Quentin Grimes is weird because he was a guy who, like, for the first 4 to 5 months of the season, he had been in Dallas. He was just kind of toiling around. He goes to Philly, he gets the minutes because they were tanking, and he absolutely lit it up. He averaged like 22 and a half points a game.
so they started at 45 and a half. They went down immediately to 43 and a half. And that continued down to 42 and a half. And I just got to take the under,
Mhm.
knowing Embiid's going to be out and continue to be out, and they
I'm
have to do
I'm
management forever.
I'm gonna go under two. I do think they'll compete for the play-in. They're also I noticed the national TV schedule. They're on national TV a lot. Now that doesn't mean always anything, but you know when Embiid's healthy, he's a fantastic player, and he meshes great with Tyrese Maxey. I worry if we're kind of at the end of the rope. Like, if we're getting sort of closer to the end with Embiid as this effective, super efficient, awesome player. But you just hold out hope that he can be that all-star Hall of Fame caliber player when he's healthy.
Regardless if he is still that guy, he's not worth the 65 million.
I think with George, it was just a bad investment. I'm just being honest. I think he's at the age where he's kind of like he's
Well, that's
depreciated.
why you pay the contract. You got him away for these first 2 years, and the last 2 years was, oh, well, we should win the championship or be the finals, so we can just ride on that, and it'll be worth it. We'll take
Yeah.
that bad
And now
final
the
year.
second year is the year you want to make the push, and it's like, yeah, but he's not at the age where he can do that.
And like,
Hopefully he comes back renewed as well.
hopefully he does, but I am just gonna sell on
This is a team where I think we're going to see a lot of whoever the starting lineup that Nick Nurse chooses at the center spot, how he puts Edgecombe in there. You're going to see the starters a lot. You're not going to see too much of the bench.
Of what, Lowry, Gordon.
Well, here, not just that. Nurse has a reputation for playing his starters a lot.
Yeah, and but I'm just saying you have two elderly gentlemen. You have Edgecombe, who will make a ton of mistakes, as all young players do.
Edgecombe's got defensive potential for sure, though, because of his athleticism. So, but between him and Maxey, who averaged almost 2 steals a game, Oubre's a good steals guy too. If he's still on the squad, they might be able to get a lot of transition offense just from getting steals.
They should, but I expect just them not to be. I take the under.
Yeah, I would hold out hope for the backcourt. If the backcourt between Maxey, maybe retaining Grimes, McCain, and Edgecombe, if he can show that he can shoot the ball, which is, for a rookie, is never guaranteed. Usually you bet against that. But if their guard spot is very strong, maybe that's enough to help give some free up Embiid to do some stuff. But man, I think you hit the nail on the head on the front court. If Embiid is out, or if Drummond is out, or they really don't have anything to support them down low. All right, Adam, the Dallas Mavericks. What a transition. They go from going to the NBA Finals with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving as the stalwarts of the team that had like a blossoming front court of young guys like Derek Lively and PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And then Nico Harrison, for reasons that I don't think will ever be fully explained until many years later, decides that he sours out relationship-wise Luka Doncic and trades him to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis and a first-round pick. And not even a week into Davis being a Maverick, he gets an injury and Kyrie Irving tears his ACL.
We have talked about this situation.
And I didn't even get to the best part. I'll let you have that part about the draft.
We've gotten the false flags episode, and then how do they get rewarded for this?
Getting Cooper flag number 1.
So on and so forth. So let's just quietly gloss over all of that, and let's just look at Klay Thompson, whose contract, like, it was a big deal that they stole him.
It's not a bad deal.
No, it's only 15. When you look at it, it's basically MLE money now. And
right.
For somebody who's declining, I don't think it's a terrible contract, but they made it sound like, oh my God, he's, like you're thinking
he averaged 3 made threes a game. I felt like when they had the injuries and they were trying to transition with Davis and they were working on the offense without Kyrie, I thought Klay actually played his best games down the stretch because he was overcompensating. Now, physically, he can't keep up that way, and that kind of showed in the play-in because when they couldn't survive against a Memphis team that just had more depth than they did. But I think Thompson did show some good moments.
Now, speaking of depth, this team is sort of, they are just the rare case of having too many centers, as opposed
Hmm.
to we've discussed both Boston and Indiana who have no centers. You got for big men, you got PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, AD, Cooper's could play the four. You got Najee Marshall who could slide into the four. And was it PJ Washington who just got a new deal?
Not only did PJ Washington get a new deal, so did Daniel Gafford. Washington got 4 years for 89 million. Gafford got 3 years for 54. Now, I'm not saying they won't be traded later, but they're in the fold
But
along with
that's a
AD.
lot of big men there.
It is, and they were actually past the tax. They just recently did a thing where they dumped one of their first round picks. His name was Olivier
Oh,
Max
Max
Prosper,
Prosper.
and then they signed Dante Exum to whatever they had left to stay under the hard cap. So clearly they're in a situation where like they don't want to pay tax. The
And
new
getting
owners don't want to pay
D'Angelo
tax
Russell for
on like BAE or whatever that was. Yeah,
just for yeah.
Russell's got a relationship with Anthony Davis and from their Laker days. So I wonder if he can fit okay.
But
He
he
had
was
some yeah.
overpaid. He wasn't a terrible player. He just didn't live up to the contracts that were given to him. And it's just like, well, why is he making that much
At this
money?
rate, I think he can be effective. And
He's
Max
serviceable.
Christie, I know I still will listen. He was part of the Luca deal going to Dallas. I'm not saying like, oh man, Dallas got a steal here. No, the Lakers won the deal. And I think it'll go down historically that way. But Max Christie showed nice signs. He had 11 points, 4 rebounds. He can make some threes. He played a lot of minutes. I think that Jason Kidd will try to use him. And that's another forward that they have.
So I don't know what they're gonna like. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Cooper Flag will be the runaway rookie of the year. Given
I don't know if he's going to get enough minutes. That's my fear.
well, he's gonna start. They're not gonna have him be on the
But
bench.
where at the 4, at the 3?
At the four, and AD will be the five, and then Lively will come in, and Clay will have to get rest days so they can move him. Or you could just play Clay at the two, Cooper at the three with AD and Lively and have a double big.
That's a slow offense. I think they can be effective because I think their pieces behind the starters is actually good. Like if they get anything out of Caleb Martin, that'd be a benefit. You know,
Well, Caleb Martin, who got dumped, well, he spurned Miami to go to Philly. Philly dumped him and then for Quentin Grimes, they jettisoned
yeah.
Quentin Grimes for him.
Hmm.
And because like when you think I'm going to pick the everything will focus around him, and Kyrie is planning on coming back this season, so Cooper Flag is going to quickly become a third or fourth option, which is very rare for a number one pick.
Yeah, and I would definitely anticipate a lot of playing time for the guy that he signed MLE money on the year before, Najee Marshall. He had good moments too. So I would anticipate he's going to play a lot.
That's why I expect deals to be made. Also, AD's not going to make 65 games. He's not going to make
He never
60.
does. He always gets hurt and he always kind of has this nagging hamstring injury or a thigh injury or he hyperextends his knees. All these big guys, they always go down. But this was just for the games he played for Dallas. 20, 10, 4.5, 2.5, 2 blocks. He played in the play-in and he looked great, even though they didn't get to the playoffs. But he's gonna fit really well. It's just that stigma of not being Luka Doncic that's going to kind of hover over him. But that's why Anthony Davis is a good candidate to try to prove the haters wrong because this is a very, very, very productive player, Adam.
And of course, we will see nothing but tons of them on ESPN because we can only
And the
show
jokes about Nico saying defense wins championships, that they have like a middle of the pack defense.
It's sad how you can make bad
On
decisions and get
offensively
lucky.
without Kyrie, they will take a dip. Like I think when Kyrie I the last I heard, the return date was estimated for January. That could get sped up. But I would say January at Kyrie's age. Kyrie also tagged on some extra money on his contract, so he's in the fold for a few years in Dallas, at least 1 or 2.
He's been
So
happy there. He's behaved
he
there.
fits perfectly there,
Well,
to be honest.
basically, he grew up. Cleveland, he was very young, and then Brooklyn, it was just sort of tantrumy.
When Anthony was out and it was just Kyrie and, obviously Luka had been traded, Kyrie was running shit and he was doing a great job. Then he just tore the knee, and it's just a very unfortunate circumstance. Flag will get playing time, like you said. I worry about whether or not he's going to have foul trouble problems. He's got I mean, he was the number 1 pick. Everybody was gunning for him in the lottery. He's got all types of potential. He's a really good defensive player. My biggest problem with Flag is that once people get a book on him, the thing defensively they're going to do is they're going to chase him off the line and they're going to make him take mid-range shots, which is his weak point.
Well, that and this team, I don't know, is a fit for him because, like I said, we've mentioned we have AD there, we have Lively, we have Kyrie, and you got Clay. Like Flag can't move around; he could only be where he is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. There's that's why a move I believe will be made, and this is not their final form. So with that being said, their odds started at 38.5 and moved up to 39. I think that's awfully low.
Yeah, especially and the West is super competitive, but they're one of those teams that's the reason why the West is competitive, because of teams like Dallas, where you got this talent, you got top end talent, and if you're in your final form by March, then you can make a run. I'd probably go over on that too.
I as well went with the over.
And that's actually the amount of wins they had last year, and I don't think they're going to have as much trepidation as they did, given the trade,
Turnover and turmoil.
all the turmoil, all the hating on Nico Harrison. I do think that he made one of the dumbest moves in the history of NBA basketball, but it's in the past. You move on, and I think they do have a good lineup in front of them. Is it a team that is better than if they just kept Luka? I would probably say no. I think it's easy. I think it's okay to say they would have been better if they just kept Luka at the end. But this is a team that's really good. Like, if you're a 39-win team in the West, you're not even making the play in. I don't think they're going to be in that situation. I think they're going to be hanging around the whole time. All right, Adam, the Memphis Grizzlies started out really well. They were like running a very different type of offensive sets where they didn't screen a lot, and they defensively had some nice moments. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a bounce back year. They struggle in March, and then at the end of that month or late in that month, Taylor Jenkins, who had been there since Ja Morant was drafted in 2019, they fire him out of nowhere. They make the play in, they survive it and get to the first round, and then they get swept by the Thunder.
And then we knew they would have roster problems because they're too deep and they're too sort of lopsided. And then in comes Orlando with a Godfather offer for Desmond Bain that you can't turn down realistically.
Yeah, it kind of bailed them out because it gave them the room to do other moves on
It allowed
July
them
1st.
to
Yeah.
sign Jackson and then bring back Santi Aldama.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring in KCP, which maybe he could refine his form. But everything comes down to what are we doing with Ja Morant? Is he your guy? Is he not? Can he stay healthy? Can he stay?
Ja Morant's talent is not debatable. It's really great. The debatable part about Ja Morant is as a team leader and his maturity. And it's not just the one single situation with the gun on Instagram thing where he got suspended. There has been I don't think everyone knows all of the facts about the Taylor Jenkins hiring, and the guy who wound up replacing him was an assistant, Thomas Asalo, and he got promoted as the head coach. So he's still there. They didn't like go on a coaching search, but there were rumblings that Morant did not like the offense that was was newly implemented, and that him and Jenkins didn't see eye to eye on certain things, and that Jenkins firing may have had to do with Morant's misgivings, but no one knows the real story.
Of course, because they kept him under like bubble wrap for most of the year, and then even then he couldn't
I
really
think he just
stay.
wanted more. I think he wanted more ball screens. I mean, he just wanted to be able to get freed up so he could get more room and space to get by his man. And I mean, all guards do, Adam. That's not breaking news. It's just a matter of, I think, he was very comfortable with the type of system they ran before that, and they had a lot of success with Morant before that. I mean, we talked about how good they were in 2021 and in 2022 with the team when they had Bane, and Bane was a good player for them. I don't want to make it out like unloading Bane was such a godsend. Like Desmond Bane was a
No, it
good
wasn't a
player
godsend.
for
It was
them.
just a, people always talk like if you send a Godfather offer in, you can't turn down four firsts.
Yeah, you
It's
have
not
you
you
have to
you
do it.
have to do it, and they
Yeah.
knew they had to do it, which is because they took a step down in with KCP and they signed Ty Jerome from Cleveland.
Ty Jerome is interesting because of the
You
fact that in the regular season, he overachieved immensely, and then in the playoffs, he floundered badly. So you don't
but
know
you
which
you were
version
high
he
on him.
is because he fits perfectly. They had Luke Kennard, who was a great three-point shooter. He wound up going to Atlanta. So now Jerome's going to take that spot, but he's actually capable of playing more minutes than Luke Kennard because he's way better defensively than he is.
And
Um,
it's extremely hard because, as we mentioned, health. Jackson, always not healthy. Zach Edey is already injured. John
mhm.
Morant probably will be injured or suspended. And that's what has really bitten this team for the
Yeah,
past
Brandon
three
Clark had
years.
injuries.
Clark
Yes.
was out for the first
Jalen Wells is okay. I think Jalen Wells will be okay. I actually saw him in summer league, but he had a horrific fall in it was like a transition move, and KJ Simpson just clotheslined him. And but he was a rookie who had some good moments. Like I think he was an all rookie player. Scottie Pippen Jr., who kind of bounced around. Um, he had great moments too. He was second on the team in assists. I think for Jaren Jackson Jr., I think they had a bit of an identity crisis over the last year or two where last year it all went off the rails because Morant was out with the suspension. Then he got hurt immediately and they were just trying to like get under the tax. So they were just unloading people left and right. So I didn't take too much stock into how they played. Last year, they were very good offensively, despite the non-ball screen offense stuff, but defensively they were really poor. And I think the focus with Jaren Jackson Jr. getting that big renegotiation and extension, which was part of Desmond Bain being traded anyways, it's like, all right, we need to settle back. We need to go back to being a good defensive team. I wonder if there's going to be a real legitimate focus of we need to make Triple J comfortable.
Well, you say you didn't you don't want to talk about the Jackson and what you complained a lot last year how he doesn't want to be down low and just wants to sit at the 3 point
Well,
line
that's
now.
my wishful thinking that this is
That
going to
was
be our
what you're saying is
refocus.
what he wants to do.
Yeah. Like, he's a
So
good three-point shooter, he is, but I think defensively, he has way more potential, but it just doesn't show in the box score. I wonder if they're gonna centralize more of it around him, is what I mean.
and you were correct in just they was it like 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago like we're just gonna fire you. We don't there was really no reason for it at that point.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre to
It
do
got
that.
overshadowed by the fact that the Nuggets did
And
it to
then the
Mike
Nuggets did it
Malone.
with like two
And
games to go.
I mean, both interims kept their jobs, Denver and Memphis. Solo, I don't know much about him. Okay, we'll see. There
He's
was rumors even
Finnish.
there were rumors that he was the one that put the offense in that John Moran didn't like, but no one knows the real like no one really knows. But Zach Kleiman's their GM. I have a lot of that. I think he's the smartest GM now. Now that Masai Ujiri has gone away, I think he's the smartest GM in the NBA. No
That's
one gets better table scraps than he does.
yeah, you had mentioned that with Jenkins because they fired all of his assistants. They brought in these new assistants, including him. He was the one who started this new offense that, like you said, Ja reportedly didn't like. So I don't really, was it Jenkins who tried to fit his stuff in? Nothing. It was, it's just strange how Memphis sort of withered away and just sort of melted and out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
there's just too,
And the struggles are all after the All-Star break.
yeah,
I mean,
they came back just flat, and then that's why they had to make the move. Vegas started them at 41.5, slid them down to 40.5.
mm,
So
I'll
they're
still go over.
slowly sour,
Mm-hmm.
but 40.5 puts you with Dallas, who is at 39.5.
This is a team that won
That's
48 games last year with even a poor finish. Like, I still feel good about over. I don't see him winning 45 games.
because
Like,
the
I don't.
problem with 45, you have the directly above them, including the team we're gonna do
Golden
next,
State. Yeah.
Golden State, Lakers, and Clippers, and that's not even the
Mhm.
contending group. So
And the pressure's on. Yeah.
that's the problem. Is they're in this? You're a better than the Sacramento and Portland, who's just below you. But so can you? Where can you steal wins from these upper groups? And if Ja just can't stay healthy, or they lose Edie,
I think though they have enough people to back him up, like Scottie Pippen Jr. being an assist man, Jalen Wells. What if Edie's healthy by then? Edie showed promise. I think he is a matchup problem, like at the five. Like he's
however, he
just
also has a
bigger
foot
than it.
problem.
He does have a foot problem, but the thing is, he is so much bigger than everybody else. Like he's just gonna be able to easily get double doubles just
Yeah,
from
but big
offensive
men with
rebounds
foot
alone.
problems, that just doesn't age
Mm.
well. And
And they have the depth, like that they're gonna get something like out of like a Cam Spencer, or if they drafted some other new guy, like they're gonna pick up somebody that's gonna be able to contribute for them. They always do. I hope that defensively they make the turnaround. Cedric Howard, that's the other guy that I forgot about that they drafted. I just wonder defensively they can kind of turn it up another notch like they did when they were successful in 2021 and in 2022. That's that's my worry for them.
I will cautiously take the over. But once word gets back to me that Edie's injury is more than we thought, or
Mhm.
Jackson has another thumb surgery or something that will take him
Yeah.
out for a few weeks. It's just like, here we go again. I can't take another year of this.
And
Everybody's always injured.
let's just say things go sour, like really sour. I know that there was rumors out there Zach Kleiman was telling all the GMs John Morant's untouchable. I think that would be the first name that people would think about at the deadline of getting moved. All right, Adam, let's talk about the San Antonio Spurs. This was a team that had two big moves that definitely are going to put them in the positive direction. The problem was that the first one obviously being a year earlier when they drafted Victor Wembanyama after they won the lottery. The next one was when they were able to engineer a trade to get De'Aaron Fox, who had intended to go there in free agency anyway. So now you get your two big stalwarts. The problem was we didn't really get to see them together because Victor Wembanyama went out with issues involving blood clots, and Fox got hurt or shut down, whatever you want to believe, probably maybe about a month after that.
And we saw San Antonio was building, and they got Chris Paul to sort of be a mentor and teach good
Mhm.
habits.
Another
However,
good draft pick in Stephon Castle, who was the rookie of the year.
yeah, he was the fourth pick, which means they were terrible the year before.
Hmm.
So the issue with them was they realized quickly, when Bayana goes out, you have zero depth. You had to go sign Bismack Biyombo out of the scrap heap, and Charles Bassey was your only center. So what do
Yeah,
they
and they
do?
still and even in the offseason, yeah, you were about to say that they added a couple of bigs.
They decided they need to invest in their depth by spending 4 years, 40 million on Luke Cornett, getting Kelly Olynyk, and then jettisoning for more first round picks, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley. Uh,
It just never happened for them. Like they had been picked in the first round, like late in the first round.
well,
Brandon
that
Miller
was
that
the
year.
the tank ideology of let's just get a lot of first round picks and maybe some of them stick. And
And it's not the worst philosophy because that's what they wound up doing with Jeremy Sohan, who quote unquote hit, a
did
good
he?
player. I think so.
What do we
Now,
think of him?
I think he is a type of player who defensively can make your team better. And even though he is a poor shooter, he makes good offensive plays.
But he seems to have a low ceiling, and he's just going to be that defensive guy off the
Yeah,
bench.
people
And
compare him to Rodman because he has the yellow hair and
yeah, that's lazy.
he wears number 91. I call that a lazy comparison too. I compare him more to like Matt Barnes. If anybody remembers Matt Barnes, he's just a guy who can fit into the lineup, play a bunch of minutes and not damage you.
S-
But remember they drafted a guy who supposedly has a lot of defensive upside as an athlete named Carter Bryant.
So
So
yeah,
let's
you
see what
draft
happens
him.
there.
What does that mean for Keldon Johnson and Darren Vassell? Also, you have Dylan Harper with the number 2 pick.
The
So that
Vassell
means
Johnson relationship is so odd. I don't mean between them. I mean the way that they use them. Like I've seen so many lineups where Vassell will start and average 20 points a game. He got an extension also last offseason. And Johnson will be off the bench. And then they'll do it vice versa, where Johnson gets the starts and Vassell. Then I'll see lineups where Castle started with Chris Paul and Vassell and Johnson both come off the bench. So like what are they going to do with both of these guys now that they have Fox and Castle in the fold?
they're going to have a lot of core issues because you have Fox and Castle, who I don't think can play together, and Harper, who
Dylan Harper, their top
is
pick.
young enough to we'll see where he fits in. But and
He
then
will clearly be the backup point guard behind and probably behind Fox. I mean,
yeah, and
some
like we
people
said,
would call
Vassell
Fox a
and
two guard. Yeah.
Keldon Johnson, who are now on the bench. So they basically by default invested in their bench by doing all of these things. Plus, they still have Harrison Barnes, who
At the three,
is
he's like a solid three.
yeah, but he's on the decline, and I expect him to be moved next
No, but
year.
I'll give RC Buford credit. They have done a very good job of making sure they didn't have damaging contracts. Barnes is on the last year of his deal, and Sohan is on the last year of a rookie deal. So if they don't see progress enough to want to extend him the way they did with Vassell, they don't have to. And the only thing that you wonder about is that Dylan Harper was a very high pick, and you wonder if he can fit. You just wonder if they made the right pick. Wembanyama, he didn't play the whole year, but 24 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. He was going he didn't officially lead the league in blocks because he didn't play enough games. But he was on pace to average 3.8 blocks a game, which is fucking absurd. That's Hakeem Olajuwon level.
Yeah, he was runaway defensive player of the year, and of course, again this year he's runaway defensive player of the year,
Yeah,
which
had a
is
50-point
just
game.
news.
Yeah.
Phil,
They also got a year of Mitch Johnson as the head coach because um Greg Popovich, the legendary coach, he suffered a stroke and he decided to retire. So they're not that unfamiliar with Mitch Johnson as the head coach. They know what he wants to run.
and with that said, on them, they started off at 42 and a half, and it went up to 43 and a half. And I don't see how it can't be over because you have they were trending so far upwards until they lost Wemby, and they had literally no center depth. So that sort of put them
Yeah.
into pseudo tank mode.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. They had like losing years. Like, their worst, they actually, the funniest part is their worst month was the month they acquired Fox. They were 3-9. It was right before the All Star break where that happened. Everybody, I don't know if everybody remembers the story, but the story was that Fox basically told the Kings, I want to go to San Antonio. So even when my contract's up by the end of next year, I'm signing with the Spurs. So you might as well get a deal done. And they engineered a 3-team deal. But they didn't play him and Wembanyama didn't really play at all together. So, it's not that record is not a great indicator of the next one if they can get both guys, Fox and Wembanyama, and healthy all at the same time.
that's why
Um,
I think it's an easy over for them.
I would go over two on the 40. You said 43 and a half.
Correct.
I would go over that. That would also would be their first. That would also be a kind of a historical footnote because that would be, I believe, Victor Wembanyama's first playoff appearance. So
And I
that
think that's yeah. Well, the problem is they've made the play-in game, and some people don't count the play-in as the actual playoffs.
I don't.
I don't.
Personally, I don't.
They haven't made the playoffs in 6 years, but I'm like they made the play-in, and that kind of I think I would count it. That's like saying the first four of the NCAA tournament don't count because they couldn't
Right.
make it to the field
You
of
made the
60.
postseason,
Yeah,
I guess you
yeah,
could
you make
call
the
it.
postseason, that counts.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, they
Um,
haven't made it in 6 years. I'm like, but they did, and we said they should be relegated for being in the postseason with that
do,
with
do you
terrible
have
records.
concerns about now they had to sign the extension with De'Aaron Fox. I was baked into this trade. But do you have concerns about the fact that he signed that huge deal where it's like 50 million to start, then it's like 60 million by 2030 because of the fact that the probably rookie supermax for Wembanyama will start in 2027. So they only really have 2-year window to like have
No,
that space.
no, and here's why. Because if Dylan Harper is the player they think he is,
Mhm.
that money that Fox is making, they could just simply not re-sign Fox after his 4 years. Bam, that's the exact same window
Yeah, but
as
I
this
don't think
rookie.
moving him is going to be possible.
Not moving, but you let it expire after 4 years, and then you
Yeah.
don't have to find money for Harper and his second deal because
Yeah.
that's Fox's money.
My biggest concern is really like between Vassell, Johnson, Harper, and Castle. Can they bounce a minute so that Castle can keep developing, getting his starter minutes? Vassell and Johnson. I got a dumb feeling between Vassell and Johnson, someone's getting traded, but and they're going to get return value of it on some sort. But the thing is, I just wonder if they could find the right balance between them because the bench is not great. We already talked about how they cut Brandon and Wesley. Champagne's a good 3-point shooter, but nothing more.
He's not going to even see the court
The next
with that
backup is
depth.
Jordan. The next backup is Jordan McLaughlin, who had some moments in Minnesota, but he's a scrub. I'm
Like you
sorry.
mentioned, Carter Bryant, I don't expect to see much of him. Whereas that you have to get rid of Johnson or Vassell for
Yeah.
Carter to see the
And
court.
Cornette, and I mean Boston has seen Cornette. Like he's not a bad 3-point shooter. He's a good shot blocker, but you don't want him playing more than 20 minutes in a game. Like
Nope,
he's gonna foul out, you
he is
know.
your perfect bench breather,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna love him.
Olenek is a great passer. So that's what I would use him for. I would have him play with Wembanyama and pass to him.
Have be the stretch five or
Yes.
stretch four.
Right.
Um, they have options to do. It'll be interesting to see. And now that they're back on national TV all the time, we'll be seeing lots of them.
Possibility of Wembanyama MVP run question mark?
No,
No, too early in year 3.
no, because not as if you still have the SGA, Giannis, and Jokic triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Like Luka is even in that group. It's just the same three, which has been the same three for like even if you put Luka that the same four for how many years now? It's just Snoozeville.
Yeah, but he worked on his threes a lot. He averaged made threes a game. Talking about Victor. This is a guy. What's beyond a unicorn? Is there something beyond that? Like that's what he is, you know?
You just have a we'll just add we'll pencil him in for the NBA 100 team in
I would guess that yes.
22 years. Well, hopefully he can stay
And
healthy.
Depoy front runner. I think you already said it. Depoy front runner too.
Yeah, and it's just not exciting with that. But again, I much like we mentioned with Dallas, I do not see this as their final form. So they're probably going to round it, and they can't tank again. This roster is sort of built, ready to go
They're too good to
now,
be a losing team now. They're too good.
and that's kind of like what we have with this group as a whole. Is these teams are all too good to be bad,
Hmm.
and you can't go to development mode because a lot of these teams don't have those youngsters
A
where
lot of times when we finish off these previews, we talk about the group and we say which one do we feel like can jump ahead and jump down. Really, all of them can. This is the toughest one to judge based off of that idea, the action of like, can this be a 50-win team? They can all be 50-win
they
teams
could all be. That's why it's just.
except for maybe Indiana and Memphis. Like
But
I
you
don't know if
never.
they can
They've
top out there.
overachieved before,
Yeah.
and we never thought Philly would be down here with injuries. We never thought Indiana could go to the finals. Somebody has to go out in the first round, and you can't.
If there's a team that I can see dropping into like the layer of hell or just tanking, Boston, because if they get an injury to Jaylen Brown or Peyton Pritchard, it's curtains. You know,
Yeah, but it's not the frustrating. It's just sort of back to the drawing board for them.
I can see a
Dallas, I
scenario
can see
like,
them getting stuck because they made one bonehead decision. I can see them making a lot more bonehead
oh, you don't
decisions.
trust Nico Harrison at the trade deadline? Get out of town. Um, Philadelphia, we've seen it before. You know,
Well, they're already
you
they
just
have
won.
one foot in there. They're testing the water
I mean,
thanks to those contracts.
San Antonio can make the jump. I think you made a good mention about Indiana. They always overachieve. They could do it again. Detroit's good. Detroit's good, period. I was when we were talking about the classes, I tried to make the case that Detroit should be above this, and it didn't happen. I can see them going above this level too. You know, they have some maturity issues in Detroit. They've never had this much success, and let's see if they can actually foster it. And then for a couple of these other, I mean, Memphis, I think, is in the perfect spot. I think Dallas is fine because defensively they are going to be a tough out. But I like all of these teams in some sort of way. But they do have the potential to leave you disappointed, and that's why they're here.
Yeah, there's a high
Like when
sort
we
of
go to the next level, which is 5 teams, like the worst case scenario is playoffs for those teams.
this has a high fail factor. When we get to the next group above it, well, really,
Low fail factor. Yes.
exactly, because the next group above, there's either you're all in or you think you're all in.
They
And
literally, the next level as a tease, they literally can't afford to be bad.
yeah, which was what Philly was last year, and now look how we're talking about them
Because if
now.
they are bad, they're superstars that are at the, you know, like Atlanta, Milwaukee, you know, Golds. If they're bad, their superstars are going to want out and they're going to blow the whole thing up. You know, that's the difference. That's
Speaking
not the
of
case. That's not the case here. Here, all these superstars are not going anywhere.
speaking of blowing things up, I think it's time to wrap up this preview. So
Mm-hmm.
for Andrew Reish, I am Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care, y'all.